started. Y muy bien, y muy buenos días. Muy buenos días. Espero que ustedes estén bien. I hope you guys are well. I had a game plan planned for today, which I've kind of revised just because I had a couple of things come up in my video feeds lately that sort of made me think I was going too big. And what we need to do is to maybe focus a little. I was going to split our day between two topics, but we're going to kind of abandon that and stick to just one topic. And that topic is going to be reflexives and the little word se and why that happens. We are going to go through possessives, but I think we will maybe start that next week because I think if I mix the two, it's going to be too much at once. And we want to kind of focus on this bigger topic. Okay, vale. Lo que vamos a hacer primero, what we're going to do first. Normally I wouldn't walk through the whole video, but I want to take a look at a real deep dive so that we can kind of pick apart the video that I assigned for you for this week illustrates a lot of things we have done. It's got the verb hacer in it. It's got it's got some reflexives and it's got some way. And when I say reflexives, it kind of also goes to just focusing in and kind of getting a microscope down. You're going to see different ways the word se is used because sometimes the word se is a really key thing that we use in reflexives. It is a reflexive pronoun, but se has probably about this many uses. Yeah, that are all slightly different. So when we start to look at that little word se, which looks like, gee, how much can it mean? It means lots of things depending on context. So this little video was a nice illustration of, actually has some great examples of why verbs become reflexive. Sometimes se means a reflexive verb. Sometimes the use of that little word se means something slightly different. So we're going to do a little walkthrough of this. Para que sepan, we're going to highlight some things that you maybe listened to and you got the big picture, but you didn't realize maybe all of it. ¿Sí? ¿Bien?
Bien.
Okay, vale. Bueno, a ver.
¿Qué es envejecer?
¿Qué es envejecer? What is getting old? That word envejecer es un verbo. Envejecer es to get old. To age. Oh, to age. And buried in the middle of that verb, envejecer, is a kind of altered form of viejo. That V-E-J comes from viejo. I know viejo has a different spelling, V-I-E-J-O, viejo, old, but envejecer, to age, to get older, comes from basically that. It's an adaptation of that word viejo. Okay.
¿Qué es?
Marilyn,
Sí.
Marilyn, is when you conjugate envejecer, is it a regular or an irregular?
Es regular, envejecer. It does not get an IE in it like the viejo word. Yeah, sí.
Okay.
Bien. Okay, although CER verbs do some funny things in different tenses, but just for present tense, it's not a huge deal. Okay.
¿Qué es envejecer?
What is aging?
Envejecer es cumplir años.
Es cumplir años. It's completing years. Cumplir años, which literally means completing years, means to have birthdays, to get older. Okay.
Es hacerse más viejo.
Here's our first little reflexive thing. hacerse viejo, to make oneself old, to make oneself old. This kind of shows how many verbs, not all of them, but many verbs can be taken, and we can have a se on them and they become what we call a reflexive. And hacerse means literally to make oneself. We would probably change the translation of hacerse viejo, hacerse más viejo, to become old or to get old. And hacerse, literally to make oneself, which is what it means for a verb to be reflexive, is often translated with this verb, hacerse, as to get in a certain condition, to become a certain thing, to become a certain way. In this case, older, hacerse más viejo. So whenever you hear a se tagged on the end, I'm not going to say whenever, often when you have a se tagged onto the end of the verb, that means we're making it what we call reflexive. And reflexive technically means that the person who does the action, that's who we conjugate it for, also receives the action. So taking hacer, to make, to do, and making it hacerse means to make oneself. Or in this case, in English, it kind of becomes more like the idea of become.
Es hacerse más viejo. Cuando somos jóvenes, cuando tenemos, por ejemplo, 20 años,
When we're young, when you're, for example, 20 years old. And here again, we have one of those tener idioms, when we have 20 years, right? When we say we are 20, but in Spanish, you have years.
cuando tenemos 20 años, estamos jóvenes, estamos
We're 20,
fuertes,
you're young.
pero
We look young. We feel strong.
cuando cumplimos años,
But when we complete years, meaning when we get older,
por ejemplo, 70,
for
estamos
example, 70,
viejos, estamos menos
and here he didn't use somos viejos, we are old people. He said, we get old, we feel old, we look old. Yeah, estar with viejo is to look a certain way, to feel a certain
fuertes,
way.
más cansados.
We feel less strong, more tired.
Pero hay una persona que quiere cambiar esto.
Pero hay una persona que quiere cambiar esto. But there is, and here comes I, our little verb we started with, there is. And he's saying, out there, this person exists. There is a person who wants to change this.
Quiere que cada vez
He wants
podamos ser más jóvenes.
He wants that we can be younger. He wants that we can become younger. Yeah, quiere que. He wants that all of us can do something. And this is not podemos, it isn't a mistake. When somebody wants somebody else to do something, that second verb becomes what we call a subjunctive. And that podamos comes from poder, to be able to can. But in this case, it means, well, he may want us to be able to get younger, but we can't make that action happen. That action of can become younger is a hypothetical, and that's why it goes into that funnier looking form of podamos, not podemos. He wants that we can become younger.
Marilyn,
Sí.
Marilyn, the cada vez, like I would literally interpret that as every time.
Each
but
time.
Each time.
Yeah. Cada vez. Ok, por ejemplo, la inteligencia artificial es cada vez es cada vez más importante en los negocios. AI is more and more, cada vez más. Cada vez más is more and more, kind of like saying more and more. Literally, cada vez each time. So it can mean each time that something happens or more and more every time. Okay?
Okay. Thanks.
It indicates incrementally something becoming more of a certain way. Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, these little words that hang together, yeah, they have meanings, but they don't translate word for word always.
Johnson es un multimillonario.
Ah,
Él tiene mucho dinero.
tiene mucho dinero.
Él tiene muchísimo dinero.
He's got a ton of money. Muchísimo. He's a magnifying.
Tiene muchos miles y millones de
He's got
dólares.
thousands and millions
Muchos.
of dollars.
Él tiene mucho dinero. Y de su dinero, él se gasta 2 millones
And $2 million of his money has been spent. And you see a little bit of that su dinero, his money, right? The su dinero, the su part means his money, possessives. We'll get to that in 1 or 2 lessons from now. Okay.
I had a question, because it says el se gasta, and then just a little further on, he just says el gasta. Like
Yes.
he doesn't do it reflexive,
That's
and I
what we-
didn't
okay.
understand the difference.
Let's back that up. This shows you a little bit of what I want you to see with this is that sometimes we use verbs with a se and sometimes we don't. Sometimes that means that verb is reflexive. Sometimes that se means not reflexive, but kind of a passive voice. Gastar means to spend, like money, not to spend time, but to spend money. Okay. Or to spend, like if you were spending energy physically, you know, they would use gastar for that too. But saying that's reflexive, gastarse, to spend oneself, that doesn't make much sense, does it? Yeah. Using that as a reflexive here, the se is not strictly a reflexive. It is his money is spent. That money is spent a certain way. So watch out for se. It shimmies around a
Millones.
little bit.
2 millones de dólares todos los años. Todos los años él gasta ese dinero
And
en
here it's just the plain, he spends this money, he is doing it himself. Not the money is spent, but he spends his money.
ser más joven.
He spends his money on getting younger.
Más joven. En volver atrás
And
en
going
su edad.
backwards in
Entonces,
age.
él organiza, planifica toda su vida,
So he plans his whole life,
todo su día, todo
all his day.
lo que hace
He plans everything that he does. Todo lo que hace. The lo que hangs together. Todo lo que hace, everything that he does. He plans his whole life. He plans his whole day. He plans everything that he does
con un objetivo.
with one objective. Un objetivo.
Él tiene una meta.
Él tiene una meta. Meta is kind of the same thing as objetivo. Objetivo es obvio. Objetivo, objective. Meta es goal. A goal, an endpoint, like the finish line in a race. Es una meta, yeah? Meta is generally used in a more theoretical sense. Any goal that somebody has can be called una meta.
Tiene una meta a la que quiere llegar, que
He's
es
got an objective
ser
which he wants
más
to reach,
joven.
which is
Y para hacer
younger.
esto, él se levanta, él
Question?
se
Sí, sí, sí.
Marilyn,
Perdón, sí.
question, the a la que, so is that a chunk?
It is a chunk.
Because when I put it in, I got which from Google Translate. Is that
Which,
what that means?
yeah, he has a goal that he wants to get to. But llegar uses that little word a. Yeah. Llego a la oficina a las 8. Llego a. Yeah. I get to the office. I arrive at the office. Okay. He's got una meta. Tiene una meta a la que quiere llegar. He's got a goal that he wants to arrive at. He's got a goal he wants to get to. And we need to, so he just used llegar because that's at arrival, get to that point, okay? But with that little verb, we need that little a word, a la que, to, and the la que is talking about meta. The goal he wants to get to. Tiene una meta a la que quiere llegar. He's got a goal he wants to reach. Where he wants to reach, he wants to
hacer
get
esto,
to.
él se levanta, él se despierta.
Here comes some real, honest to goodness, reflexives. Verbos reflexivos aquí. Él se levanta. He gets up. Él se despierta. He wakes up. Here is the true kind of reflexive verb that people start off with. And that is an action that one does to oneself. And many of these wind up talking about daily routine things that you do, but something that the person doing the action also receives the benefit of that action. Okay, so the subject is also the object. Does the action and receives it. One gets oneself up. Levantar means to lift. And in Spanish, they don't say get up. They say lift yourself up because you pick your whole body up. Okay, so levantar could be used just for, uy, ¿qué tengo aquí? Levantar could be, I don't have it. Oh, sí. Momentito. Okay. Levanto el archivo. I'm picking this up. See, I'm lifting it up. But if I pick my whole self up, that's levantarse. Yeah. I pick my body up. Se despierta, I wake up and I do it on my own, right? The doggy doesn't wake me up. The screaming kids don't wake me up. The neighbor's dog doesn't wake me up, right? I wake up on my own. Okay, so here come two, honest to goodness, traditional, easy to explain reflexive verbs.
Todos los días a las 5 de la mañana.
Every day he wakes up at
Muy
5.
temprano. Todos los días
Really
él
early.
se
Every day.
despierta a las 5 de la mañana.
He wakes up at
Y
5.
se toma todos los días más de 100 suplementos.
And he takes more than 100 supplements. This is a real story, by the way. This guy has been in the news. And notice he used tomar. Tomar is just to take. So we use it to eat, to drink, to take. He happened to use tomarse reflexively, to take once. Sometimes these verbs just get used reflexively for eating and drinking, like comerse is to eat up, to eat all of something. And tomar kind of means he is gobbling up a ton of these supplements. Yeah, tomarse just kind of helps with that idea of he inhales this stuff, people. He just sucks down a ton of supplements.
Más de 100.
Oop.
pastillas,
Más de 100. More than 100
vitaminas,
pills. Vitamins.
proteínas,
Protein.
medicinas,
Medicines. All kinds of stuff.
más de 100.
Más de 100, more than 100. Yeah, when we have more than and we name a number, it's always más de. Okay, más de, more than. More than with a number.
Mucho. Y también hace ejercicio. Hace
Ejercicio, this hace doesn't need to be reflexive. He exercises. Literally, he does exercise. That's a traditional way of people saying that somebody exercises.
hace ejercicios de fuerza
He does strength
y
exercises
de resistencia.
and resistance,
Fuerza,
endurance.
Resistencia. ¿Y qué más?
What else?
Pues él también
He also
medita.
meditates.
Él medita todos los días. Medita todos los días por 10 minutos.
He
Todos
meditates
los
for 10
días
minutes every day.
él medita 10 minutos. Pues mira qué bien. Entonces, tenemos los suplementos,
So,
tenemos
we've
el
got supplements,
ejercicio
we have
y
exercise,
tenemos la meditación.
and we have
¿Qué más?
meditation. What
Él
else?
también hace otras cosas.
He also does other
Él
stuff.
tiene una dieta, lo que él come, su dieta es vegana.
He's got a vegan diet.
Él solo come vegetales y verduras.
He only
Y
eats
él no
vegetables and greens.
come carne,
He does not
ni
eat meat,
huevos,
nor eggs, and these little ni words mean nor, meaning you're negating. Not this, not that either, not that either, not that either, okay? So when we start with the no come carne, he doesn't eat meat, we're going to add other things to the no list by using ni. No comen carne, ni huevos,
leche.
ni leche,
Él no
nor
toma
milk.
nada de esto.
He-
Fuera.
He doesn't eat any of that. Not any of that. Nada de eso. Nothing of this. Nada de esto is none of this. We would say none of that or none of this.
Y además, él controla
besides, he
la
controls
cantidad de comida
the
que come.
quantity of food
Y
that he eats.
todos los días come lo mismo. Todos los días
Every day he eats the same. The same
él
thing.
come exactamente 1977 calorías.
Las misma cantidad de calorías. He eats the same quantity of calories every single day. Okay. 1977. ¿Por qué es un número mágico? No lo sé. I have no idea.
Todos los días
Ni idea.
exactamente lo mismo. Sigamos. También todas las semanas, cada semana,
Every week?
él se hace análisis.
He does analysis on himself. Or he has an analysis done on himself. Okay, and there's the se hace again.
Él se hace análisis médicos y lo hace cada semana. Por ejemplo, el lunes, pues el martes, miércoles,
Los
jueves,
días, he's naming all the days of the week.
viernes, sábado y domingo. A lo mejor todos los miércoles él se va a sacar sangre.
Se va, he goes off, he takes off to have blood taken out. Sacar es take out. So,
Marilyn,
sí,
question on the, like, whenever ear becomes reflexive, it changes the meaning a little
A
bit,
tiny
or
bit.
like,
We'll look at irse when we look at reflexives after the
Okay.
video. Irse as a reflexive is kind of a special one. It's kind of different from the other ones. Some reflexive verbs mean to do the action to oneself, like se hace análisis, he does an analysis on himself, meaning a medical thing, right? Okay. O hacerse viejo, become old, to get, one gets old, you know? But irse is kind of a special one. We'll take a look at that later. And actually, the way that you will usually hear people using irse is a little bit different than how he's using it here in the video. But he goes off to have blood withdrawn, to have blood taken out. That's what that means here.
Y a hacerse análisis.
And he has
Él mira
himself
cómo están sus
analyzed.
pulmones,
He looks at how his lungs are, pulmones.
sus pulmones, su corazón o su hígado.
Okay. His lungs, his heart, or his liver. So notice for later, when we do talk about possessives, later on in another lesson, when we'll talk about possessives, all these words, sus, su, and su, in this context mean his, because we're talking about these organs belonging to being a part of his body, okay? Sus pulmones, his lungs. That sus is plural, even though it means his. His is only one person, but the sus is a plural word because the sus has to look at the thing that is owned. And because you've got two lungs, pulmones, and it's a plural word, the word sus has to go plural. Okay. So even though only one person owns that set of two lungs, the word pulmones is a plural word because it looks at pulmones being a plural word. But then it goes back to singular. Su corazón, his heart, it's only one heart. Su hígado, his liver, it's only one liver. So the thing that's owned, the item that's owned, right? When we look at the possessive word has to modify that noun. The possessive his is modifying pulmones, plural, so it's sus pulmones. It's modifying one heart, corazón, a singular thing. It is su corazón, singular word. It is modifying hígado, a singular word, so it's su hígado, his liver. Okay, vale.
Todas las semanas,
Every week.
él se mira su cuerpo.
He takes a look at his body. He takes a look at himself. Se mira. He takes a look at himself, his whole body condition.
Además, como él tiene mucho dinero,
Besides, since he's
él
got a lot of
tiene
money,
más de 30 médicos,
he's got more than 30
más de 30
doctors
médicos que trabajan para él.
who work just for him.
Además, también hace cosas como
He also does
ponerse
things like,
sangre.
ponerse sangre. Here is another reflexive. Ponerse. We looked at hacer, salir, poner. Here is poner, but used as a reflexive. Ponerse means to put something on or onto oneself. Okay, ponerse sangre, since we don't apply blood to the outside of our body, it's going in. He puts blood in himself. Okay, ponerse sangre. He literally, did not use the word inject because he wanted to use a simpler word everybody would understand at a lower level. Ponerse sangre, he puts blood in his body, but it's got to be new blood.
Ponerse sangre de personas más jóvenes.
He puts blood into himself from younger people. This guy actually does do this. And actually he's got a 20-something-year-old kid. He has enlisted his kid in this. Okay, that kind of gives me the creeps. All right.
él se pone sangre de personas que son más
He puts in
jóvenes.
blood from younger people.
Es como un vampiro,
He's
¿no?
like a vampire.
Un poco como un vampiro.
He's a little like a vampire.
¿Y vosotros qué
And
pensáis?
Here's because he's
Es
Spanish, he uses vosotros, not ustedes.
¿Posible?
What do you
Lo
guys
que
think?
él hace se puede hacer.
Is it possible that se puede hacer? Here, se is not strictly the reflexive. Here, it's more a passive voice thing, and you can only tell from context. Se puede hacer.
Yo
Can one make oneself? Can one do it? Right? So se, besides being reflexive, like se levanta, se despierta, se pone sangre, the true reflexives to do something to your own body, okay? Se used with a verb sometimes is not reflexive. Sometimes it means kind of like a passive voice. One can do something. Se puede hacer. One can do. Can one do this? He's asking a question here. Can one do this? Meaning any old person. Okay. This kind of se is like a passive voice. And every time you hear in a late night commercial or you see a sign in a little strip mall and they say, se habla español, that's the kind of se that is being used here. Se habla español means not that one speaks to oneself, Spanish. Se habla español means Spanish is spoken here, is spoken. One speaks Spanish here, meaning somebody on site can use the language. Se habla español, right? You'll also, this is often used, this kind of se is often used on signs as a not reflexive use of se. On signs, you'll see a sign that will say, like on a storefront, either se renta or se alquila, which are two words for rent. And it means for rent, can be rented. Yeah. Se habla inglés, English is spoken. Se habla español, Spanish is spoken. So se has many different uses. These are the two biggies, probably, one being the reflexive, the other being that kind of passive voice use. So be aware that that is out there and you just have to get the feel from context.
Creo que no es posible
He thinks it's
lo que
not
él
possible.
está intentando.
I don't think what he is doing is possible.
Yo creo que podemos envejecer, pero que rejuvenecer no se puede.
No se puede. You can't do it. It cannot be done. It cannot be done is the no se puede. You can't. It can't be done. It is not possible to be done. And this se is not our traditional reflexive kind of se. So he's got both uses of se, both of the big two of the like 6 different things. He's got a
Es
couple of
verdad.
examples.
Lo que yo pienso
Lo que yo pienso, what I think,
es que todo esto es una cosa para vendernos los suplementos.
I think this is all es opinion. Here's his opinion. I think this is just to sell us supplements.
Que es todo
That it's
una
all,
cosa para
it's all a thing
vender.
to sell stuff.
Para vender los productos
To sell
que
products.
que Brian Johnson utiliza.
To
Y
sell the stuff that he
vosotros,
uses.
¿qué pensáis? ¿Creéis que Brian Johnson podrá vivir
Do you think he'll be able
más de
to live more
100
than
años?
100? Okay, so that gave us a little tour, but it had a whole bunch of uses. uses of se, which some were reflexive, some weren't. So, okay. You had a couple little videos on what a reflexive verb is, right? See, to watch for homework. Okay.
Yes.
We're going to tackle some of these and we're going to practice some of these. You actually will get to practice some of these in smaller groups. Bien. So, se is a little magic word that is
最后
often
明天吗
used. Uy, ¿dónde
Ok,
está?
dámelo.
Share. Mi botón de share. Se is a little word that is
你
often used. You'll
你
you'll
牙齿怎么了？
either when you look it up in the dictionary or sometimes you hear it used as an infinitive. You'll see verbs that are exactly the same verb, but some have a se on the
你给
end
他给了，
and
你就是说你
some
现在跟问他
do
3点
not.
半能不能，然后他都没回你。
Oh, and you may want to put yourself on mute with your phone call because we can hear you speaking. Actually, I think I will mute her.
对，他在上班。
Oop. I will try. Big. Okay. So
没
here's the
关系，那就
difference.
先这样吧。我会跟他说的，就跟他说你明天3点半开。
Okay, there we go. Now it worked. Llamar by itself with no se on the end means to call, like you pick up the phone or you just yell at somebody. Yeah. But llamarse is to call oneself. And to say you call oneself to make it reflexive sounds odd because we don't use that set of words to say this idea. We say, my name is, his name is, her name is. But literally in Spanish, it means I call myself, you call yourself, he calls himself. So the se on the end makes it reflexive. It changes the meaning of the word. Okay, it changes it from just plain old call somebody to somebody's name is. Somebody is called something and identify their name. Yeah. See? Bien. So when it says an infinitive, it'll have a se on the end. Okay, when you look it up in a dictionary or when somebody is using a verb just in its infinitive form, you'll know this reflexive because it's got a se tagged onto the end. But when we actually use it, when we actually conjugate it, we have to take that se off and we have to change it into a group of pronouns that we call or that are known as reflexive pronouns. Okay. And in this case, the pronoun is going to match, line up with, be the same as the person who's doing the action. So me llamo means I call myself. When we conjugate it for yo, we have to use it with the me pronoun. And I cannot drop this me pronoun. If I just say, llamo a mi hija, I'm calling my daughter. Llamo a mi esposo, I'm calling my husband. Yeah. I just say llamo. I generally don't use the yo with it. Yo llamo. You can, but most people will drop the pronoun yo. And whereas a subject pronoun can be dropped, a reflexive pronoun, if a verb is reflexive, cannot be dropped because the meaning of the word will change if you drop that pronoun. So llamo has a different meaning than me llamo. Me llamo means my name is, I am called. For a tu verb, the pronoun, if we need to use it in a reflexive way, has to be te, meaning, te is related to that idea of tu, right? Just like me is related to that idea of yo. But we have to use the te. For él or ella or usted or ellos or ustedes, for anything that is what we call third person, meaning anytime we talk about somebody else, not you, those all use the pronoun se. Whether it's él se llama or ellos se llaman. Both of those, third person singular and third person plural, use se. So they share the same kind of reflexive pronoun. This os is something used just in Spain, but you won't hear it outside of Spain because they don't use vosotros and nosotros. While we drop the nosotros, if it is reflexive, we have to include that nos pronoun. So nos llamamos has a different meaning than just llamamos, okay? So skipping the pronoun in front of the verb changes the meaning of the verb ever so slightly. It does change it, okay? And I'll send you these here. Lots of verbs can be used both as a reflexive and not as a reflexive. But again, it alters the meaning somewhat. Despertar means to wake. So if my husband oversleeps and he's going to miss his business meeting, I shake him awake, and that's despertar. But despertarse is to wake up by oneself, to wake up of one's own accord. Okay? Bien? That is a difference. Some of these reflexives, some are also stem changers, meaning they have that internal vowel change, but of course some are not. Levantar, lifting weights, is not the same as levantarse, getting up, lifting one's whole body up, right? Ducharse, you just always hear this used reflexive. I don't have a reason for why, but it is. Bañar is to bathe somebody else, which obviously you would do with a little kid or with your dog. You got to give your dog a bath. That's just bañar. But bañar says to take a bath, right? In English, we say take a bath or take a shower. Well, that is reflexive because I'm doing the bathing or I'm doing the showering and I'm doing it to myself. So that is considered reflexive, right? Lavar. Lavar by itself is to wash an item, whether it's plates or your car or your clothes, to wash something. But when you wash a part of your body, whether it's your face, your arms, your feet, your hands, it's lavarse, lavarse. All right? It means to wash something off oneself. Bien. Perdón. Ay, a ver, aquí. Lots of verbs kind of related to that idea of putting stuff on your body. And we heard ponerse with ponerse sangre, putting blood inside of himself. But often ponerse means to put something on yourself, okay? That putting blood in, like injecting blood into himself, like he talked about in the video, is like the real extreme, not just putting it on your body, but inside. Usually ponerse means putting on clothing, right? To put something on. But that can mean not just clothing, but it can mean jewelry, because you put it on your body. It can mean any kind of lotion or sunscreen, because you put it on, okay? So ponerse, poner is just putting something somewhere, but ponerse is to put something on, right? Vestir means to dress, which you only do with a little kid, right? Who doesn't know how to put on their own clothes, like a toddler or a baby. But vestirse is to dress oneself. But literally, we say in English, get dressed. That's just the way we express it in English. We use get, right? Arreglar. Arreglar by itself just means fix something or arrange something, set it up, okay? But arreglarse, to get oneself ready, to get oneself fixed up, yeah? Arreglarse can mean you get yourself all fixed up before going to a party, yeah? Or getting yourself all fixed up and ready to go to work, así, like that. Peinar means to comb out somebody else's hair, but peinarse is to comb your hair, right? Cepillar means to brush somebody else's hair or teeth or something, right? Cepillarse is to brush one's own hair, or this is often used to brush one's own teeth. So you can see a lot of these are kind of related to daily routines, but they're not all necessarily daily routines. Here's another daily routine, and both these verbs are used for talking about cleaning our teeth out, and that is either cepillarse los dientes, which literally is brush your teeth, or lavarse los dientes, literally washing your teeth, which is what brushing your teeth is about, cleaning them up, right? So people will interchangeably use either verb to talk about brushing your teeth. Acostarse, acostar is to put somebody to bed, like, again, a little kid. But acostarse, to get in bed, to go to bed. Okay, bien. So these are the common kinds of verbs that we call reflexives. Sentar means to seat somebody, to show them where their seat is, right? But to sit yourself down, to sit down is sentarse, yeah? And we in English need this down direction word, yeah? You may hear somebody say, which sounds a little more formal, please be seated. Yeah. But in English, generally, we use down with the idea of sit. And that down thing is conveyed by the little tiny, tiny word of se hanging on to the end of that word. And here we go. Dormir, to sleep, but dormirse becomes fall asleep. So there are all kinds of little nuances and meaning that can happen with reflexives. Bien? Okay. I'm going to stop that here right now to just see if you have a big question as to why verbs are reflexive, which is kind of a big thing, or how they change the basics. Does that generally make sense to you? Sí? Bien? Okay. Vale. All right. Entonces, we're going to go to some practice with this in just a moment, but we're going to take a quick look at this before we go off into practice one more time. This again will be the thing where the meaning of the verb changes somewhat if we don't have that little reflexive pronoun. So we always have to have a reflexive pronoun, and the reflexive pronoun matches up with is the same form as that subject and the conjugation. So a yo conjugation must use me for the pronoun. A tu conjugation verb must use te. And él, ella, usted, ellos, ustedes, that whole tier of third person, whether it's singular or a plural, it has to use the pronoun se. And then our nosotros verb will have to use nos. Okay, so without that, you're kind of hosed. You can't go without the pronoun. Can't ditch it. Can't drop it. Okay. Here are some of the practice questions I'm going to have you do in small groups. We're going to look at the first 5. We're going to do the first one together. And then I'm going to send you off into groups to do the other 4 down here. Bien? Okay. So all of these, we're going to take a quick look at what all the questions are and what all the questions mean. ¿A qué hora te levantas el fin de semana? At what time do you get up on the weekend? ¿Por qué te levantas muy temprano? Why do you get up really early? En tu casa, at your house? ¿Quién se despierta temprano? Who wakes up early? ¿Cuántas veces al día? How many times a day? Te lavas las manos. Do you wash your hands? ¿Prefieres lavarte las manos con jabón de barra o jabón líquido? Do you prefer to wash your hands with bar soap or liquid soap out of a pump? Yeah, see, bien? Okay, and this is the only one where you're going to notice we've got a two verb combo. It's the only one, and the other ones are going to have to conjugate the verb when you answer it. Okay, so this one will use a two verb combo. But all the others are single verb. You get up, you get up. Who wakes up, right? And wash your hands. Okay, so all the others are single verb combinations, except for that number 5. Let's look at number 1 together, and we're going to give the sample answers so that you can see that when you go into your small groups. ¿A qué hora te levantas el fin de semana? What time do you wake up on the weekend? So I'm going to have you practicing asking the question and then answering the question in your groups. If we're answering a question, what time do you get up? Of course, you have to answer for yo, right? So if we're starting off this idea, I get up is going to become what in the answer?
Me levanto.
Me levanto. Okay, it's going to have to start out with me levanto. It has to start off with, because I'm asking you about yourself, right? ¿A qué hora te levantas? What time do you get up? Me levanto. And now this is about the weekend, and we're going to talk about a time. So it's going to be an a las, right? And then we need to give the hour to tell what time. Me levanto a las, me levanto a las
8.
a las 8, por ejemplo. Me levanto a las 8 el fin de semana. Me levanto a las 8 el fin de semana. And el fin de semana is just the weekend. You know what? You can still omit that el fin de semana when you answer. You don't have to repeat it again. That's usually what's going to happen. Me levanto a las 8. Bien? We need the a las 8 because it's asking at what time. It's asking for more information, not just do you get up, but what time, right? Bien?
Marilyn?
Sí,
But before we go into our breakout groups,
sí.
whenever we're answering, we wouldn't say it would still be las manos, not mis manos.
It'll be las manos. Yeah,
Okay.
you wash your hands.
Because with body parts, you don't use the
With-
possessive, right?
With body parts, we don't use the possessive like we do in English. You know, you might say,
Okay.
I mean, you can on occasion, when people need to clarify something, they might on occasion use that. Like you might on some occasions hear people saying mi cara when they're talking about something specifically, my face, not your
Okay.
face, but usually it's la cara, the face, las manos, yeah, la nariz, los ojos. When we talk about body parts, we usually don't use the my, your, his, her. Usually it's just the word. Okay, bien. Vale, so we've got one good example. I want you to work just through number 5, número 5. Okay, vale? ¿Entienden?
Marilyn,
Sí.
I admit I'm staring at number 5 with the two verbs there. That
Uh-huh.
I can see the prefieres is probably going to conjugate prefiero, but I'm kind of like stumbling over what we would do on the conjugation of lavarte. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm just
Okay.
tired.
You know what? I'm going to change this a little bit and we'll come back to that question. Okay. So hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'm going to change this one a little bit just to make it easier and more consistent with the others. And then we'll come back to that as a two verb thing when we're done. How's that? Because this will make it a little more straightforward. Yeah. Te lavas las manos con, yeah. Do you wash your hands with bar soap or liquid soap? Right. So you're picking one of the two. See, And we'll come back to the double verb thing when we get done with breakout room. Does that sound fair? See? Bien? Vale. Okay. You will see these. Okay. Ba, 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 ba. Dos, tres. Okay. So join, when you hit your join button, you should be able to see the share screen from the questions as well. Oh, and you know what, Karen, I've got oh, no, Danita's in. Okay, good. Yay. One of those, one of those, one of those. Okay, we've got groups of two. And if you're timing that out, that's okay. These little reflexives are just, we just have to kind of know which verbs use these, but we're using the simple reflexives today that talk about daily routines, which is the way that reflexives are usually explained first. Although sometimes reflexive are used for other kinds of activities too, but the important thing to remember is that we've got to have that two-word combination with reflexives. You can't skip the little pronoun. You need the little pronoun. Me for yo, te for tú, se for él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes, nos for nosotros. You can't skip the little pronoun. And then we conjugate the verb just like you normally conjugate a verb. So the conjugation of the verb is what you expect. We just need to pair it up with the little pronoun to get that special meaning of you're doing that action and you also are receiving the benefit or the result of that action. That's essentially what a reflexive means, a reflexive verb means. Oh, se me olvidó de poner mi cronómetro. I forgot to set my stopwatch. Vale bien, mi cronómetro. Pongo mi cronómetro. I'm setting my stopwatch. Pongo mi cronómetro. We've got about 2 minutes to finish. Okay. And people have a minute to finish up. Okay. Vale, muy bien. Bien, bien, bien. Got a few more people we're waiting on here. I think they've got about 20 more seconds. Hay 20 segundos. Okay, aquí vienen. Here comes everybody else. Bien, bien. Okay. Y ¿qué preguntas tienen? What kind of questions do you have, or did that go well?
Went well.
Muy
Okay.
bien.
Bien. The only one that might have been kind of hard, might have been, this one because of, a
¿Por
why.
qué
might-
te levantas?
yeah.
Yeah.
But notice all of these have a yo answer, right? So me levanto for the first one. Me levanto here
levanto.
again, yeah, to ease you in. Me levanto. ¿Por qué te levantas muy temprano? Why do you get up early? What might you have said to answer that? What would be some examples?
Porque me despierto temprano.
Porque me despierto, because I wake up. I get up because I wake up. Sí. Me levanto porque voy a mi trabajo, because I go to my job. Me levanto porque mis mascotas necesitan dinero. Dinero, no. Mis mascotas necesitan comida. Bien, sí.
Ajá.
Necesitan comida, sí. Que es dinero, yeah, which is money as well. Okay. O me levanto porque, and notice when we answer that with a porque comes back with a one word, porque tengo trabajo, because I have work, porque,
Temprano para hacer deporte.
sí, sí,
Mm.
exacto. Me levanto porque hago deportes, because I do some kind of sports, right? Practico deportes.
Porque quiero caminar antes del sol comes up. What was it? The sun?
Antes de que salga el sol, because I want to get up
Before.
before the sun gets up. Yeah. Sí, eso. Me
Verano.
levanto porque tengo una cita because I have an appointment. Okay, there are many different things, of course, that might follow the porque, right? And this one alone was the one that might not have a yo answer because I ask who wakes up early. It could be a yo, right? But it might not. So if it's not a yo to answer that, what might it be?
Mi esposo y yo nos despertamos.
It could be mi
Temprano.
esposo y yo nos despertamos. Yeah, it depends on who wakes up. When I ask who wakes up, the who in your answer becomes somebody. And we conjugate the verb for that somebody. If it is both of us, it's nos despertamos. If it's mi esposo, then it just stays. Se despierta, right? See? If it's mis hijos, then it's se despiertan. So how we form that se despierta verb depends on who it is, right? Who it's answering for in the question. Bien? Okay. Vale. Bueno, ¿alguna pregunta? Any question on how to use these? Or shall we go on to some new questions? Sí, otros ejemplos. Before we do that, let's take a quick look at the preferir, because I promised that on number 5, right? If sometimes you may hear a reflexive paired up with a second verb. Prefieres lavarte las manos. I'm changing number 5 a little bit. Con, yeah, and then your choice, right? Do you prefer to wash your hands? If we use it as a 2-verb phrase or a reflexive, there are 2 things that might happen. But what is going to be consistent is that actually we're conjugating that verb first for a yo, right? So, prefiero. Prefiero lavarme. Las manos. I prefer to wash my hands. Prefiero, there's the yo form, lavarme, and then that reflexive can just stay there, not conjugated. Prefiero lavarme las manos. But because I've got 2 verbs working together, that little me word es flexible. It's got 2 places it can potentially go. And one position is not more common than the other. It's just a choice. They're free to change around. So I can say, prefiero lavarme and attach the me, but it's no longer a te, it's no longer a se, it's a me, because I'm talking about what I prefer, right? Or I can flip that me around to in front of the prefiero verb, and I'm still a-okay to do that. So the word order, me prefiero lavar las manos. It can do 2 posiciones. Para me son posibles. 2 positions for that word me are possible if I use a 2-verb combo. Both of these positions for the word me are a-okay. I cannot tell you why. It just is the way it is. But that's only when it's 2 verbs working together. Yeah? The prefiero and the infinitive. Okay? So The reason for that is that when I have an infinitive, which does not get conjugated, I can tag it on to the end of that infinitive, or I can use the position of in front of the first verb, which is conjugated. And both of
Meryl?
those. See, Cindy.
I do have a question about that. So does it always come in front of the conjugated verb? Not, it doesn't ever come between the conjugated verb? the
Buena
infinitive?
pregunta. It can never be the white in the Oreo cookie. It can never be the middle. Yeah, it can never come in between. So it will never be, I have to think real hard. I have to look at my screen. It can never be prefiero me lavar. It can
Okay.
never be prefiero me lavar. It can never be that. It can only be prefiero lavarme or me prefiero lavar. It can be either be the engine of the train leading off. Yeah. Here, it's the engine of the train. It's the engine leading off. It can also be the caboose on those two verbs together. It can be the caboose that follows the little tail end of the train.
Mhm.
Okay, it can be the caboose, it could be the engine, but it can't come in the middle. Eso es.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Marcos, does that answer your question about the two verb thing?
See, I know we've seen that before at some point in the last
You've,
year or two,
you've seen
but
it
it
before.
just drew a blank.
Yeah, and I should have simplified it. So thank you for having that question because it reminds me not to get over my skis. Okay. Not to get ahead of my skis. Okay, a ver. Por ejemplo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's take another 5 questions. Let's take another 5 questions. These are all going to use reflexives. This one uses cepillarse, brush yourself. And here it's talking about los dientes, teeth. Yeah. Pasta de dientes es
Toothpaste.
toothpaste. Yeah. Pasta here it is not pasta that you eat like spaghetti. No es spaghetti. Pasta de dientes is toothpaste. Okay. ¿Con qué pasta de dientes te cepillas? What toothpaste do you brush your teeth with? ¿Qué ropa te pones cuando hace frío? What clothing do you put on? I want you to focus on the te pones. So I'm going to underline your verbs here in the questions to remind you which things will need a pronoun when we answer that. What kind of clothing do you put on when it's cold? ¿A qué hora te acuestas generalmente? What time do you go to bed? Usually, right? Generally. ¿Cómo se llaman tus hijos? What are your kids' names? Or grandkids' names, or nietos, if you want to use grandkids instead of kids. Okay. ¿Y dónde se duerme tu mascota? Where does your pet sleep? Where does your pet fall asleep? Mejor dicho, better said. Where does your pet fall asleep? Cuando toma una siesta, when he takes a nap. Where does your fur baby fall asleep when he takes a nap? What room? What piece of furniture? ¿Dónde? Where? Bien? Okay. Número 6. Number 6 needs a yo answer because I'm asking you about yourself. Número 7, number 7 needs a yo answer because I'm asking you about yourself. Número 8, that needs a yo answer because I'm asking you about yourself. But here I'm asking about somebody else. Can't use a yo answer. Here I'm talking about somebody, not a human, but mascota, a pet, yeah? So no yo answer there. So you get a little practice with each of those. Bien. Ok. Bueno. A ver, un momentito. Let's go to our breakout rooms. And you'll see the questions in the breakout room when you hit your join button. Bien. Okay. Oh. Momentito, Laurie, I need to move you. Y voy a poner mi cronómetro. I'm going to set my stopwatch so people have 5 minutes to work this. Un minuto más. Vale, bueno.
Oh, I think I took.
Vale,
Oops,
bueno.
I didn't mean to do that.
Okay.
Oops.
Muy bien. Ok. Bien. Esperamos a como 3 o 4 personas. We're waiting on maybe 3 or more people.
We do have a question.
Okay. I would like you to ask when everybody gets in because
Absolutely.
yeah, so everybody, because somebody else may have the same question.
Of course.
Okay. Okay. And we're going to show, Cindy me dice que tiene una pregunta. Cindy tells me she's got a question, and always if you have a question, ask it, because the fact is when one person has a question, somebody else probably has thought that same idea too. So it's good to share. Okay. Dime, tell me.
So, primero pregunta.
Sí, sí.
Uso Colgate para cepillarme o me cepillo los dientes.
¿Me cepillo los dientes?
Ujú.
Se usa, you use what?
Uso Colgate. I use
Oh,
Colgate
sí, sí, sí. Sí.
para cepillarme o me cepillo los dientes.
Okay. Entiendo. Sí. Uso, I use, and she, and we're going to show you a couple different ways you might answer this, because there's not necessarily only one right way. Uso, Colgate, para cepillarme los dientes. And Cindy chose to change the verb to this, I use, which is okay. But if I do that, the reflexive still has to be reflected in using this cepillarme as an infinitive here. And this will be para cepillarme, in order to brush my teeth. After a word like para, which is a preposition, you have to use an infinitive. So because she kind of changed up the way she phrased this, and sadly she's off screen. When she comes back, we'll explain this a little bit better. Ideally,
In about 20 minutes.
we wanted you to stick with something like this. Me cepillo los dientes con Colgate, con Crest, con, y la marca and the brand, right? So ideally, I wanted you to stick with me cepillo los dientes con Colgate, me cepillo los dientes con Crest. Yeah, see, just la marca, the name. So that would be the easiest way to answer that question. Now, Cindy changed it up a little bit, and it is okay to do that because there's not necessarily just one way to answer a question. So because she changed it up, the uso is fine. I use. Uso Colgate, I use, and then la marca, the brand. See? Para cepillarme los dientes, the para cepillarme needs to stay as an infinitive because of this word para, Cindy. Para is what we call a preposition.
Uh-huh.
Prepositions are itty bitty words like para, like a, like de, like en, like con. And for prepositions, a verb that comes right next to a preposition has to put it back into infinitive form. It's just a rule they have.
Okay.
But notice that infinitive still needs to have the little tag on me. That little tag on pronoun me still has to be attached to the cepillar. See?
Sí. Ujú.
Okay?
Está bien.
¿Entiendes? Understand?
Yo entiendo.
Okay. Okay. Perfecto. Perfecto. Bueno. Hay otra pregunta. Is there any other question? Oh, no. ¿No? Bien. Por ejemplo, ¿qué ropa te pones? Me pongo, right? If I'm answering for yo, it has to be a me pongo. Me pongo un suéter.
Suéter.
Me pongo un suéter. Me pongo una chaqueta.
Me pongo muchas capas de ropa.
Sí. Muchas tapas de ropa. Many layers of clothing. Sí. Me pongo mucha ropa. I put on a lot of clothes. Me pongo mucha ropa cuando hace frío. And the hace frío stays hace frío because I don't make the weather. So that can't become a yo verb, right? That hace frío just is talking about what the weather, the atmosphere is making. ¿A qué hora te acuestas? Right? Me acuesto. We need in our answer. A las. And then something that talks about the time. La hora, right? Me acuesto a las 11. Me acuesto a las 10. Me acuesta a medianoche. I go to bed at midnight. Lo que sea, whatever time it is, right? But here I cannot use yo in the answer because I'm not answering what my name is. I'm talking about somebody else, right? So I'll answer that with, I can name mis hijos or I can name mis nietos, right? Or I can just like leave them out. If I'm answering that question, it's likely somebody will throw out, they'll just totally throw away this hijos or nietos word. They'll throw it out because it's understood. It's in the question. Why would I repeat it? The verb is going to tell me, so I don't need to repeat it. So they'll probably just answer it with the verb starting off. Se llaman, and then nombres. Okay, so somebody might answer. Se llaman José y María. Se llaman Elena y Mauricio. Right? But they'll likely just drop this human being thing in the answer because it's understood. And they'll just lead off with the verb, which is already a reflexive verb. Se llaman, and then they'll list all the names. ¿Sí? Bien? Okay.
Sí.
¿Y dónde se duerme? Where does he fall asleep? ¿Dónde se duerme tu mascota? Here we're talking about mi mascota, my pet, right?
Yeah.
So you might answer mi mascota. You might answer mi perro. If you've got a doggy, you might answer mi gato.
Gato.
Yeah, lo que sea, whatever it is, whatever your pet is, right? And se duerme, and that verb won't change because it's talking about that one little furry or feathered being, right? It stays se duerme because we're talking about one person, not yo, not nosotros. ¿Sí? Bien. Okay. Vale. Entienden. I want to answer one other little quick question about irse for Lori, because Lori had a question on irse that goes way back. Actually, I'm going to send this out and I'm going to tag on probably about 6 or 7 extra questions to the end of this for you to come back and work with some more next week. Okay. So you see the examples you already did. And at the end, I'll put them in a different color. The new ones, I want you to prep for next week, okay? But we're going to take a quick look before we leave at one special little verb, which is ir. Somebody once asked me, and this was a good question, can all verbs have a se at the end? Can all of them, theoretically?
No.
Not really, but a lot can, a lot can. So the point I want you to take away from this is that many verbs might have both a form just with the verb and a form as reflexive. Many might. You just have to you have to be uncomfortable with it for a while because you're not going to be able to memorize them all, but you have to just start to get used to it. But this verb ir is a little bit special because you often hear ir
Before.
used as a reflexive. You often do. I'm going to show you how. Ir by itself means to go, right?
Yeah.
Que básico, how basic. Everybody knows this. Everybody know that ir means to go. So, voy, vas, va, vamos, van. Okay, fácil. If it becomes reflexive, and often it does,
Oh boy.
irse, wait a minute. If you do the action and you also receive the benefit of the action, that makes no sense. To go yourself? Huh? To go to yourself? No, it doesn't. Irse, the se on the end of a verb, making it reflexive, often just twists around, changes very slightly the meaning of the verb. And here it changes very slightly the meaning of to go. It means more, irse is more like to
Go where?
leave,
To
to take off, to take off. And I'm not talking about a plane. Yeah, to take off, to leave a place. It's like in English when somebody says this idea. When somebody says to you, I'm out of here. And they kind of chuckle, I'm out of here. It means they're going away, right? Irse means to go away, to take off, to leave. All right. And it becomes this, me voy. It becomes te vas. It becomes se va. It becomes nos vamos. It becomes se van. Okay. We use this, you'll hear people use irse very frequently to say they're just getting out of a place. They're taken off. All right. Somebody, you're having lunch. You're having lunch with friends. And everybody else is sitting around chatting, but you have to leave. You might just say, me voy. I'm leaving. I gotta go. It's like saying, I have to go. That's all. I have to go now. And you're not saying where you're going to. Notice it's not like saying, voy a la oficina del doctor. I'm going to the doctor's office. No. Ir a, this often names a place. And it names the place with that and the place phrase, right? Here, not 100% of the time, but really frequently, there's no place mentioned. It's just, I'm leaving. Me voy. Nos vamos. We're taking off. We're getting out of here. We gotta go, right? It means that people are going away. They're leaving a place. And you'll often hear that when people say they're leaving the area. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. De nada. Bien. I'm going to send you some more questions to prep, practice, think about how will I answer these for next week, la semana que viene, see? More reflexives, and you'll get a listening video that has no particular theme, but just to follow the story. And it's kind of a fun video. Oh, it's about making chocolate.
Mm.
Yeah. So not a grammar thing. They're going to talk about one kind of special machine. And I think I'll probably send you a link to show you what the machine looks at, because you'll probably even look up what the word is. And it's like, I don't have a definition. So we'll show you one extra file that'll show you what a special machine they're going to use in the video. ¿Todo bien? All good?
Y me
Todo
voy
bien.
hasta
Okay.
luego.
Y continuamos, and we'll continue with this reflexive thing. You just have to get familiar with, just have to see lots of examples of how reflexives are
class now.
used, and the little tweaks about how it changes the meaning around a little bit, because sometimes it doesn't strictly make sense as I do it to myself. Sometimes we use different combinations of words in English to convey that same meaning, but it does twist the meaning of the basic verb a little bit. ¿Todo bien? All good?
Sí.
Todo
Okay.
bien.
Gracias.
Okay, vale.
Gracias.
Bueno, a ver. Y nos vemos más tarde. We'll see you guys later. Espero que tengan muy buena semana. I hope you have a really good week, even though it's going to be a wet
Hasta
week.
luego.
Sí, hasta luego.